Today is the 5th of November, 2009. We are in Pine Plains, New York. My name is Wayne Clark. I'm with the New York State Military Museum and Veterans Research Center out of Saratoga Springs, New York. Ma'am, for the record, would you please state your full name and your date and place of birth, please?
My name is Rose Miller. However, my married name is Rose Landsman Miller. When I went into the service, my name was Rose Miller.
Today is the 5th of November, 2009. We are in Pine Plains, New York. My name is Wayne Clark. I'm with the New York State Military Museum and Veterans Research Center out of Saratoga Springs, New York. Ma'am, for the record, would you please state your full name and your date and place of birth, please?
My name is Rose L. Miller. However, that is my married name. When I was into the service, my name was Rose Miller, Rose Landsman. And I was born July 24, 1916 in Massena, New York.
Did you attend school in Massena?
Pardon?
Did you attend school in Massena?
My family is all gone, outside of a couple of cousins.
But did you go to school in Massena?
Oh, yes. I went to grade school in Massena. Then I finished the grade school in Syracuse. I went to Wilmington High School in Wilmington, Delaware for 2 years and finished up my high school in Massena, New York, graduating in 1933.
All right. And once you graduated, did you go on to college at that point?
I became a nurse. I went to nurses training in 1934 in Brooklyn, New York, the Jewish hospital in Brooklyn, and graduated as a registered nurse in 1937.
And did you start your nursing career at that point?
Yes, I started my nursing career. I did staffing for about a year, and then I did private duty in the hospital for about 3 or 4 years before going into the service.
All right. Now, do you remember where you were and what your reaction was when you heard about the attack on Pearl Harbor?
Oh, yes. And I remember I was ready to go off duty, and it was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and we heard this horrible news, let's use that word, that we were at war. I'll use the word visions, of flying. And I had been taking flying lessons for several months. And then I was in Brooklyn, and I went back to Massena, and in my flying, I was taught how to fly on the water, or to land on the water. It's different from trying to land on land. I went back to Massena, and I had to learn how to land on the land. I got as far as soloing, which is everybody who flies will always remember the first time they took a plane up alone. You come down, you think you were in paradise. That is the feeling that you get. Everybody. I was talking to somebody just recently, and he said, he's a pilot, and he said, that's right. I will never forget it. Anyway, I was...
Now, what kind of airplane did you fly?
At that time, there were Piper Cubs. I mean, we were learning how to fly Piper Cubs. Everybody, I think, learns how to fly Piper Cubs today. Well, you get into a machine and you learn everything there. And then my classmates from training, a number of them were going into the service, and I said, well, now I had already enlisted because I didn't want to tell my father I was going into the service.
When did you enlist?
I think it was sometime in July I went down and I applied.
Mm-hmm.
But we had to go through the Red Cross. At that time, nurses had to go through the Red Cross because, well, we were not considered part of the service. It was all complicated.
Mm-hmm.
But once we were into the service, we were given the rank of lieutenant, first lieutenant.
All right. Once you entered the service, where did they send you to begin with?
They sent me to Atlantic City.
Mm-hmm.
Atlantic City at that time was an air base. And there, we encountered everything that was thrown at us, if I'll use that word. We weren't receiving any wounded at that time. I mean, they were just an enlisted base, I'll use that word.
Did you receive any sort of training or?
No. We had no further training. We were nurses, that's it.
And they gave you a uniform and a commission?
Yes.
All right.
Yes. They gave us all the uniforms, the white uniforms to wear white caps and you name it and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Shoes and, well, outside of whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And we encountered meningitis there. In fact, at one point the base was almost closed for anybody coming in, going out even by train. We, I would say, because we were alerted and we knew about a lot of these things, we saved an awful lot of the boys.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there were over 5 of them we could not save.
Mm-hmm.
It was unfortunate, but one was, well, it was just that, we couldn't, that was it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like one time when, you see, on lunchtime, all the officers go off to lunch and they leave an OD on. And while I was there, they admitted a patient. They were ready to admit a patient, and he got a temperature, and I loosened his coat. I took a look and I said, "You have a stiff neck." He said, "Yes." And I saw these marks on his neck, and I called down to the admitting office, and I said, "I'm not admitting him to a pneumonia ward. I'm sending him upstairs to the meningitis ward." And that's how quickly we saved all the rest of them that we knew, you know. Well, things changed, and spring came, and everything was fine again.
Mm-hmm.
And then in I think it was April or May, there were 2 of us who had applied for flight training. And I was a little bit annoyed because I said, why did they call her before me? Anyway, I knew a number of the officers, and they said, well, don't worry about it because you're going to be in the next class. They had to take her because of her age. If they didn't call her, she would have been over the age of going.
I see.
Anyway, I was in the next class, and they sent me to Bowman Field for flight training. I mean, yes, we had to adapt of how to, I'll use the word, conduct ourselves in the plane.
Mm-hmm.
And they were all mock-ups, like the C-47s would go in with equipment and come out with patients. And in the interim, once they were unloaded, I mean, the equipment was unloaded, they had to set up these, what they call litter straps. And the litters were just slid into the litter straps. So, so we had to learn all of these things in order to do our jobs. And in the meantime, you know, they sent us to the different hospitals to do this and that and the other thing. And around November, they had already broken up our class and put us into our squadrons. Now the squadrons consisted of 25 nurses. There were 6 flights. And the flight leader. Well, there were 4 flights of 6 nurses plus the chief nurse. And like I said, each flight was 6 nurses, and what they call 5 plus the flight leader. And so, around the end of October, our squadron was called to attention, and he said, the first group of you will be leaving in 4 hours to San Francisco. So that meant packing up quickly and getting everything ready to leave in 4 hours. When we got down to the plane, they had bumped everybody off. I mean, they didn't bump everybody, you know. And they broke us up so that each flight went on to a different plane, and we all met in San Francisco. We didn't know where we were going. When we got to San Francisco, they equipped us with Arctic gear, boots, parkas, you name it. And around the first week of November, we were alerted for our flight. We're leaving on 4 C-54s. These were the big passenger, they weren't passenger planes, but they were the big C-54s, and they were able to fly long distances. 3. Well, 3 of us left on time. 3 planes left on time. And 1 was a little delayed because of engine problems. And we got there, in fact, we got there on a Friday. Well, the plane that got left behind, one of the nurses, her husband was, he was based at Wheeler Field with the fighter planes. Anyway, she said to the chief nurse, would you please call when you get there and tell Ray I'm coming down? Fine. So she called the commanding officer when we landed, and he said, when she comes in, have her call me. Okay. Well, Sunday morning, their plane landed. And she called the commanding officer, and he says, you stay right there. I'm sending him down to get you. Well, of course, you know, he's probably only a first lieutenant at that time. He's fussing and fuming. Why should I go down and pick up, I was the second lieutenant. He doesn't know who this is, you know. And that the crew was alerted. Then when they landed, the crew disappeared to pick her up. When she got out of the car, her husband said to her, Annie, what are you doing here? Go on home. I mean, I like to put a little bit of humor into stories. Anyway, like I said, it took us close to 4 to 5 months before, I'll use the word, Admiral Nimitz decided that flight nurses was okay in the Pacific. Because he said, there's no place for it here. Well, like I said, we proved him wrong. Anyway, the first group was sent down to Port Moresby to evacuate anybody coming up. They were to bring all the injured all the way up to Hickam Field, which would have been about 10, 20, 24, over 30 hours. And these two, there'd be 2 nurses. They would be coming up alone, only these 2 nurses and their crew with their patients. Well, when they finally got up, they decided that is too much. I mean, you can't put someone on a plane and ask them to take care of patients for 36 hours all alone.
Mm-hmm.
So they decided no. So they broke that up. And then they were going from Port Moresby, New Guinea, into Guadalcanal, from Guadalcanal up to Canton Island, and then from Canton Island back up to Hickam Field. And then another flight would be taking the States, the States runs, which would have been anywhere from 12 to 14 hours, depending on the winds.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, they sent the second group, they sent down to Guadalcanal, and that was going to be almost 20 hours in the air. And the third group was taking the States, and the fourth group was going on to Tarawa. Well, I remember the first the first flight. We hadn't really begun our what would you call it? Our runs. So we were up in Vivac, and suddenly they said 2 of you will be going to Canton Island to pick up 5 burn cases. The plane hit a bunker and blew, and 5 of them were burned. They sent us down to bring them back. Well, we got down there. That's almost 9 hours down, 9 to 10 hours down, and an hour down, and about 9 to 10 hours back.
Mm-hmm.
When we got down there, the patients were just swathed completely. The treatment that they got down in Canton Island must have been so good that we met one of them, and all he had was a little scar on his nose. I mean, the treatment that we were getting in the Pacific was unbelievable. So from that time on, our crew was the 4 spots. When I was down in, I had picked up I was down on the Guadalcanal run, and I had picked up a flight there. And that one had just come out of New Guinea. And she said, I think you had better prepare for a blood transfusion when you get to Canton Island. And I said, why? This boy had, I don't know, this is 65 years ago, and everything else is different. She said he has aplastic anemia. Now that could have been anything. I probably had leukemia or whatever. And the poor boy was oozing blood from his mouth. All he was doing was spitting. So before we took off, I wired ahead for whole blood transfusion type. We didn't have RH then. I said, prepare for a whole blood transfusion on landing, with with ETAs, whatever. So 9 hours, or when we took off, I strapped on the oxygen. All we had was a little tank. No sooner did I get it on, he said, I have to spit. Off comes the mask. Put it back on, I have to spit. Off. So I said to my corpsman, you fly with 1 nurse and 1 corpsman with about 30, 35 patients. So I said to my corpsman, you look after all these others, this one needs me. And I sat there for the rest of the flight, on, off, on, know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
We landed at Canton Island, and they took him off, and they gave him a transfusion. Well, as soon as the transfusion was over and he was loaded back up, we took off, and it was fine. I could strap the mask on and tend to the other ones. And when we landed at Hickam Field, I said to my commanding officer, I would suggest that this boy remain on the ground and have him transfused before going out on the next leg of the flight. I'm sorry, but he's going out in 4 hours. Well, he's the commanding officer. There's nothing else I could do. And let me put it this way. If it had been one of the other girls, or the southern girls, he would have listened. Now, this commanding officer was a southerner.
Mm-hmm.
From Mobile, Alabama, a real southerner. And I had 2 strikes against me. See, he didn't like me. First, I was a damn Yankee. And secondly, I was Jewish, so he didn't like me, period. Anyway, the boy went out in 4 hours, and they almost lost him. My roommate was on that plane, and she said they almost lost him. The only thing they had was plasma, and they put, to this day, I only hope that he was able to get home before he went. I mean, yes, this was, this wasn't a war room, but we evacuated everything from war wounds to psychos to medical problems and whatever. We also evacuated more psychos and more jungle rot. And how these girls, I know that when it was our turn to go out, if it wasn't our turn, if we had just come in, we had like a little clinic, and then we brought our patients in there for a few hours, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So while I was there, and they brought some of these jungle rots in, the stench was overpowering. Now how the girls sat there for 8 hours and smelled that, I really don't know. So like I said, we never knew what we were picking up. I mean, the rest of them, you know, over the years you remember the bad ones.
Mm-hmm.
You don't, oh yes, you remember the psychos. One of them, for every plane load of patients we were bringing out of the South Pacific, we had to have 5 psychos on the plane. They tried bringing out a plane load of psychos and it didn't work. Anyway, on one of my planes, he decided, when we had like a latrine on the plane, and he decided to get up and streak up and down the plane. I mean, like I said, you look at it and you see a bit of humor in spite of the war.
Mm-hmm.
There was still a story about the psychos. There was one psycho who saw ducks. He was in New Guinea. Ducks. Wherever he went, he saw ducks. Well, the psychiatrist tried to rid him of the ducks. Finally, they sent him back to duty, and he still saw his ducks. Anyway, he decided he's no good. We'll send him back to the States on the Section 8. Well, it's 4 hours from New Guinea to Guadalcanal, another 20 hours to Hickam Field, another 14 hours to San Francisco. Well, all of this time, he saw his ducks. Finally, they reached San Francisco, and about an hour out of San Francisco, he calls the flight nurse over and says, "Lieutenant, you can have the you can have the ducks now. I don't need them anymore." Anyway, we evacuated. I was on the was it the Squadron run? From Squadron, we went off to Saipan and Guam. And when the hospital ships picked up the wounded in Saipan, they unloaded 1,500 sick and wounded at Squadron. We had all of those sick and wounded back in Hawaii in the general hospitals in less than a week. Where if the hospital ship had gone, it would have taken 3 weeks and then 3 weeks back.
Mm-hmm.
We had them all back. So I guess we proved Nimitz wrong. My last flight, I mean, yes, I went into, from Squadron, we went to Guam and Saipan. And when I was in, I think it was the Saipan, they gave us the quarters just beyond the hospital so that we wouldn't interfere with the, you know, the nurses and all. We were the last one. Well, I had injured my hand and I couldn't sleep. So about 2 o'clock in the morning, I hear a door bang, and there were Japs all over Saipan. In spite of it, they're all hidden. And I'm scared. Everybody's asleep, and I'm hurting. And I hear this noise, and I hear someone walking on the gravel. And a little while later, I hear the gravel and the door slam. And I'm still so scared. And finally I said, "Prowler! Prowler!" Well, the guards came, the MPs, they searched the place up and down, sideways and backwards. And everything was quiet. We finally all went back to sleep. In the morning, the nurse across the she said, "You know, I got up and went to the latrine, and when I got back, all hell broke loose." I didn't dare tell her that it was me. Anyway, like I said, all of these things, there are some very strange things in Saipan. The Japanese, at that time, what would you call them? Well, whatever.
Were you there for the bonsai attack?
Hmm?
Were you there during the bonsai attack on Saipan?
Right after that.
Right after it?
Right after that. Well, the reason I'm saying that was that the Japanese that were still there did not want to be taken by the Americans. Whether they were afraid or whatever, I don't know. So they all, the families committed suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a section there, it's called Suicide Hill, or Suicide Cliff, or whatever. They would line up their children, and then they would push them down off the cliff. And the second one would push that, until the father was left, and he would jump.
Mm.
It was called Suicide Hill, Suicide Cliff. I mean, these were cliffs.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you go along the Palisades and you know what the cliffs are, but these were high, so you can just imagine. But when we got there, you could smell, you know, they had a lot of sugarcane factories there. And it was a very peculiar smell, I suppose dines or whatever it was. Very unpleasant. Anyway, most of us were pretty close to the air base anyway, so it didn't bother us that much. And we never, as far as I don't remember, none of us ever saw one of these brown snakes that they talk about in Guam.
Mm-hmm.
And I never saw them. Anyway, my last flight was to Okinawa. We had been married in February.
Now, do you want to tell us about how the marriage came about?
Well, I met my husband at Hickam Field, and
Now, was he a pilot or an enlisted man?
no. He was with the Signal Corps.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, they had to set. At one time, he was telling me they had to set up communications in Kauai. Now, Kauai is a very peculiar island. I'll use that word. Because you can't go all the way around the island because the mountains go right through to the end. You start from one end and it goes right through. All the way down, so they can't go all the way around.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to go, you have to use a boat to go all the way around. So part of his job was also they had to set up communications right through the mountains, right down to all the force all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
And they had to set up communications in Hawaii all the way up on the top of the mountains too. There, so I mean that was his job. But of course, you know, like everything else, you're on Hickam Field, and you get to know all the officers there too. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, he was on. No, he wasn't. He was already back from Truro when I met him. And then he had to go to the Palaus.
Mm-hmm.
That's another group of islands. And that was another group of islands that the Japanese had, we had taken from them. Anyway, when, you know, after being on Hickam Field, 2 months here, 3 months, whatever there, and we didn't know when the war was going to be over because I had already been overseas 18 months,
Mm-hmm.
and he'd been overseas longer than that. So we were talking about it, and we said, if we got married, or if I got pregnant, if I got married, we got married, and we went back to the States, I'd be on one end, and he would. I'd be on one end and he'd be on the other, because you could, at that time you couldn't be married and be in the same base.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So we decided, I'll get out of the service. I'll get pregnant. So somewhere around April or something, and so we were married in February. And
You want to tell us about the service and?
well, we were married by the chaplain from Pearl Harbor.
Mm-hmm.
I was in the Air Force, and my husband was Signal Corps. He was called Ground Force.
Now, what rank was your husband?
At that time, he was only a second lieutenant because he was always following something up. All of the other, they would all become captains, and he ended up as a first. Anyway, we were married on February 15th, 1945. At the chapel on the Hickam Field. The chaplain was from the Navy. A little Chinese boy played the organ. A Marine sang the hymns. So it was kind of an international wedding. And I had been complaining. I had gotten to be quite friendly with the general next door. Every time he would send his orderly in and invite me over for dinner. And one time they had Christmas cheer, and he sent his orderly over wants me to come and join them for Christmas cheer. And I said, I can't go. He goes back and tells the general came over. So the girl said, you better go. Anyway, I was complaining to him that my husband could not get off the island at all. He said, don't worry about it. He said, you set up the time that you want to get married, and I'm sure he'll be there. Well, the next thing I knew was that I got a letter from my husband setting up the time that he will be there. You know, I said, I guess it's important that you get to know different people.
I guess so.
Oh, you know, it was a very, anyway. So like I said, my last flight was to Okinawa, and I guess I was getting morning sickness, and it was a little bit too much already, and I just turned myself in to the medical department and was discharged.
Now, when were you discharged?
I was actually discharged in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
June. Actually, it didn't take effect until August, because I was due certain time and stuff like that. So actually, my discharge, even though I was discharged in June, it didn't really take effect until August.
Mm-hmm.
And I should have waited a little bit longer, because in August, that's when they had dropped the bomb, and that was it. You know. Anyway.
So once you were discharged, where did you go? Did you stay out in California?
No. I came home. Actually, I went to my husband's folks.
Mm-hmm.
They were waiting for me because they had only met me once out in San Francisco. My father-in-law was a theatrical lawyer,
Mm-hmm.
and he had some business out there. So my mother-in-law came out first, and I met them both down in Los Angeles.
Uh-huh.
So they were very anxious for me. I mean, they heard I had become pregnant, and they were very anxious for me to come back. And so I stayed with them, and I went home for a while. I went back to Massena for a while to see my folks. And then we couldn't even find the housing. I mean, there was, at that time, even after the war was over, there was no housing available. If you had a room in a house, you were lucky.
Mm-hmm.
There was no rooms. Nothing was available until all these new housing developments went up.
Now, when was your husband discharged?
He was discharged in September.
Okay, right after the war had
Right
ended.
after the war. He was discharged in September. I mean, there was something very funny. We went to a party, and by this time I was about 8 months pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a fellow there, and he said, "When did your husband get back?" I said, "September." And here I'm like this. And he looks at me. I said, "Oh, I forgot to tell you, we were married overseas." And his face dropped. You know, funny things happen.
Mm-hmm. Now, when your husband was discharged, what did he do? Did he go back to school, or did he get a job?
Yes. He went back to school.
He made use of the GI Bill?
Yeah, he went back to school. He went back to law school. And
Okay.
he was supposed to have joined his father in the law business, but like everything else, a lot of things fell apart, and his father died, and like I said, everything fell apart.
Wow.
Didn't I tell you to stay off? His, like I say, everything fell apart.
Okay. All right.
And I just went back to nursing.
And so did you make use of the GI Bill at all for any
What?
additional training? Did you use the GI Bill at all?
No. I mean,
Okay.
by that time, like I said, I had the one child.
Mm-hmm.
And then shortly after that, I mean, 15 months later, my daughter was born. So I said, with him going to school,
Mm-hmm.
it was impossible for me to go back to school.
How many children did you end up
3.
having? 3?
And you saw the other one.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my daughter is, so she lives in Long Island.
Uh-huh.
She lives in Long Island.
After you got out of the service, did you stay in contact with anyone you served with?
Yes, yes and no. We had, at that time, just shortly after that, oh, maybe it's about 4 or 5 years later, the flight nurses decided that they were going to join, they were going to have their own group.
Mm-hmm.
See, there are 1,500 flight nurses worldwide. We covered everything from North Africa, all of Europe, England, the CBI.
Mm-hmm.
The girls flying that, they were flying the hump. The entire South Pacific. And so, because there weren't many, when you compare 1,500 of us to the hundreds of nurses that were on the ground,
Mm-hmm.
we weren't very many. So they decided to form a World War II association.
Mm-hmm.
So we more or less once a year, once a year we have a reunion. But since we're losing them almost
Mhm.
every year,
Yeah.
it's I want to say it's dwindled down to if we have 100 or 150 nurses that are left, that's an awful lot.
Mm-hmm.
But we're still trying to keep us in January. We hope to have. I hope it isn't the last reunion.
Uh-huh.
And there's an awful lot of them that I know that we've lost contact with them completely.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they might have had family problems or something, and we don't know where they are. I mean, we know those that have gone, but outside of that, we don't know where a lot of them are.
Mm-hmm. Did you join any organizations like the VFW or the Legion?
No, I mean, right now I'm more or less I'm a member of our American Legion over here,
Mm-hmm.
but outside of that, actually, I was doing a lot of working at that time, and I didn't really have time to join any of the organizations where I was.
Mm-hmm.
So I just let it go. At one point, somebody had asked me when you went back to work, how did the other nurses treat you? I couldn't understand what she meant. But then I began to understand, because I didn't go back to work for maybe about 7 or 8 years later.
Mm-hmm.
By that time, everything is, war's over.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, they treat you like any other nurse. They didn't ask you where you were or anything else.
Uh-huh.
They treat you like any other nurse. And that was it.
How did your family, your parents, react to the fact that you had gone into the service? Were they worried or upset about that at all? Did you have
Well,
any other
like I
family
said,
members then?
My father was against. Well, you have to stop and consider that way before the draft to begin with. If someone joined the army at that time, something was wrong with them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know what you wouldn't remember. It was almost like the drugs of society. So my father always had an idea that the service was something else.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was very reluctant to tell him. But like I said, my oath had already been in. And when I came back and my orders came home, that's when I told him. And I think by that time he had kind of accepted that this was war.
Mm-hmm.
And, accepted it. And I guess he was very proud of the fact that I was the only one of the whole family that was able to put my time and energy into helping people.
Mm-hmm.
My brother couldn't go for physical reasons. And since the rest of us were all women.
How do you think your time in the service changed or affected your life? Obviously, you wouldn't have met your husband.
It's difficult to say. It's difficult to say because once you come back and you pick up ordinary life again,
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like a bad dream that you had, or a good dream, depending on how you look at it.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't know.
Did you have any trouble adjusting to civilian life after being in a war
no.
zone?
No. When I first got back, my mother-in-law said to me, "Well, would you like to go to the congregational meeting or whatever?" I said, "No, I am very happy just sitting here. Nobody's going to tell me when to get up. Nobody's going to tell me when to go to bed. Nobody's going to tell me when to go out. Just let me sit for a while."
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the way I felt. Just let me,
Mm-hmm.
leave me alone. I mean, because it didn't make any difference. We knew it, and you know, when we were in San Francisco. Oh yeah, we had in between our flights though, we might have it might have seemed like we had a lot of time off.
Mm-hmm.
Because for every 12 hours in the air, we had to be on the ground a full 2 days. Otherwise, now the girls coming up from on the Guadalcanal run, they had one flight down in the South Pacific doing the New Guinea to Guadalcanal run.
Mm-hmm.
Which was 4 hours. That means if you had to go in, be 4 hours in, 4 hours back with your patients, that's 8 hours already in the air, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there'd be another 28 hours up to Hickam Field. So if they didn't have enough of their nurses, they would pull hours. So that meant these girls were in the air 28 hours.
Mm.
I mean, we would come off like this. We couldn't eat. We couldn't sleep. At one time, we were all trying to take Secanol to help us sleep. Even that didn't work. So they issued a command that we had to be on the ground at least 48 hours. I mean, there was one ground nurse who had to be flown out somewhere. And when she got off, she said, "Well, I wouldn't want your job." So, I mean, we were considered the elite. Well, we were different,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Now, it doesn't make any today. If you take a look at the equipment on the plane that we had, you just wouldn't believe how primitive it was. And I mean primitive. You know, we had no penicillins at that time. Oh, yeah, we had lots of them. We had sulfur, yes. We had sedatives, yes. We had painkillers, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a lot of other things that we just didn't have. I mean, in fact, when we first went to Atlantic City, we had, sometimes I often wonder how in the world we ever won the war. We had used up a year's supply of aspirin in 6 months. And at one time, when the hospital, we had about 1,500 patients at that time of various conditions. They had no urinals.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what do you do now? Well, you need the urinals. So they went to the Red Cross. and they brought back all sizes and shapes of vases so they could use as journals. I mean, that's what I said. How we won the war, I don't know. I was just persistence, I guess. Is there anything, I'm trying to think of anything else.
Well, you've got a lot of interesting pictures there. Do you want to show us what you've got there?
Well, this picture, this was taken at Bowman Field. We were doing our training, if you can possibly
Yep,
see.
just hold it right up in front of you and I can zoom right in on it.
Okay?
Okay, that. All right, got it.
Okay?
Yep.
Oh, I'm trying to think. I don't know whether you're going to be able to see this one or not, but this is funny. And there's a really story behind this one.
I'm getting a little glare if you can just tilt that a little.
Yeah, you really can't see it.
Okay. All right. Yeah, not very well. Okay. Now, you want to tell us what it is?
Yep. Now, we were on Canton Island, and the men had caught a large tuna. So they said they were going to have a tuna fry for us.
Mm-hmm.
And they all came over. And at that time, I had long hair.
Uh-huh.
So I put my hair in 2 braids and put a little bow on each one. So, of course, you know what I looked like. Well, there was a directive also from the commanding officer on the island to put my hair up. Well, these are all, well, I don't know whether...
Whatever you want to hold up, I can zoom in on.
I mean, my husband had brought back a Japanese bicycle. So we managed to, and it was rideable. So I would go off to the, PX on my bicycle, you know. So of course, you know, I didn't have to get dressed up either.
Okay. All right. Got it.
Okay. Well, we all did. We decided to get dressed up, and the general had a nice little pond, so we decided that. I said, well, let's go over by the pond to get some pictures over there, and so one of these pictures. Well, this isn't near the pond, but so I got all dressed up.
Okay. All right, got it. Now, what is that one large picture there on top of the album?
Hmm?
What is that picture right there?
Oh, this one?
Yeah.
Okay. This was when I was in Atlantic City. This was before I went into the, became a flight nurse.
Okay. All right. Got it.
And this one, I had some relatives in Atlantic City. And when I went out to Atlantic City, my cousin said to me, "Did you know your picture's on the boardwalk?" I said, "You're nuts. Come on, I'll show you." And there in the Photoshop was me.
Really?
With 250,000 troops.
Well, you were a good-looking gal back then.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you still are.
Oh, thanks. Well, this is a picture. I mean, we had the flight nurses we had our own. We were the ones. Actually, we were the first ones with the. I'll use Air Force blue, but it wasn't. It was a cross between a blue and a blue and a gray.
Mm-hmm.
And they issued us like 2 pair of pants and a skirt, and our jackets were almost like flight jackets, you know, Ike jackets.
Ike jackets.
And those what we were if we went back to the States, that's what we were supposed to wear, because you know. And then we went into brown. Other than that, they told us no more blues for us, because everybody else went into brown, and we used our flights. And well, this is just a slight picture, and you wouldn't believe this that I only weighed. I weighed at this time. I probably weighed about 104. You can barely see it. I think that's the only one I might have.
Okay. All right.
Somewhere when we were on Canton Island. Looking for some. Here it is. This is Chihuahua. For some reason or other, I don't know where the dog came from, but this was Canton Island. And believe me, Canton Island is nothing but a drop in the middle of the ocean.
Okay. All right. Okay.
This boat, I mean, you can't see it in a picture, but it was this boat.
Oh, okay. That's the boat.
Hmm?
That's the boat you have
Yeah.
in front of you. Okay. Do you want to hold up that boat and tell us about it?
Oh, God. Looks like something was playing with it. No, it's just the... I don't even remember how it went up. Well, however it went up, I'll just hold it up. Uh-oh.
Okay, and that's an outrigger
Yep,
type boat, and that was, where was that made?
Torella.
Okay, and you want to tell us how you came about
I had done
obtaining
something
that?
for... I know I dropped something here. There it is. Oh. Well, whatever. We'll find it later. Oh, here it is. I had done something for one of the captains. In fact, I said, he asked me if I would send something back to the States for him, because you know, they couldn't send anything.
Mm-hmm.
So apparently he had a lot of things that the natives had made, and he wanted to send it to his wife. So I said, if I'm going back to the States, I said, I'll send it back. So I took it, and then when I got back again, he had these boats made for me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were both for me, but I didn't know they were. This one was a smaller one, but it was the better looking one. And so, like I said, I kept this one. And like I said, I kept it's over 65 years now, so I hope that it will continue. It will last.
Okay.
Now there was another picture. Oh, boy. There's another picture of me someplace.
All right, I'm gonna stop right here and change tapes.
Okay. They weren't all prepared for us. So the commanding officer took his flight wings off and gave it to her.
Oh.
And started them. So I mean, ours are the flight wings with the medical.
Do you want to hold that photo up in front of you?
Oh.
That is a very nice photo. Was that the photo that was in the shop that you told us about?
The one?
That was in the shop down in Atlantic City?
No, it was the other one.
Oh. Okay. And let me just zoom in on those wings.
Hmm?
I just want to zoom in on the flight wings, if I can.
The wings.
Yeah. Can't get a very good shot at it, but okay. Okay, very nice picture. Okay, I got it.
I mean, that's when we went into Brown. They insisted that we have our flight nurse uniform was the blue-gray. That's the one that we wore.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't like these. We didn't like these at all. I mean, we were well. Actually, at that time, it was the Army Air Force, you know. Until it became the regular, Air Force.
Yes.
But I mean, here's the wedding picture. Now you can see it. You're gonna laugh about this one too.
Okay. Now, did you, were you able to have a honeymoon at all?
Yeah.
Okay.
I took my R&R.
I got it.
In the Jewish religion, you're supposed to have 2 Jewish witnesses.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, I forgot. And both, the best man and the matron of honor, were both good Catholics.
Now, was your husband Jewish also?
Yeah. So when I got back, and I had realized it, and while we were on our honeymoon, I remembered. You know, we're married.
Mm-hmm.
But my mother-in-law, she's something else again. She said, "Oh, don't tell anybody. Don't say anything about it." But when I told my father about it, and my father had been trained for the rabbinate, you know, and he said, "Look, it's America. You're married. That's it."
When you were overseas, did you, or even in the States, did you see any kind of USO shows or anything like that?
Oh yes, we saw an awful lot of the shows. But most of the time when we were there, we really didn't have very much time to sit in on them because we were either coming or going.
Mm-hmm.
But I was coming up from Guadalcanal. We were on like Canton Island, and we heard that a VIP was coming down. So everybody's got to say, "Who's this VIP?" I mean, it couldn't have been a general because you know. Well, anyway, the plane landed. And what came off the plane was a lady. And I'm saying, a lady. Have you ever heard of Olivia de Havilland?
Oh yes, Gone with the Wind.
Hmm?
She was in Gone with the Wind.
Probably. No.
Yes.
Was she?
Yes.
I think I remember. Well, anyway, she was beautiful. But more than beautiful, she was a lady.
Mm-hmm.
She came off of that plane with a simple dress. Well, normal high heels, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But gracious. I mean, she was gracious. And you know, I'm a woman. I look at her like this. You know, the aura that she expelled was like the essence of womanhood.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't Betty Grable, excuse me. But like I said, she was a lady.
Mm-hmm.
She could have been your sweetheart, your wife, your mother, your sister. She was everything all. I mean, that is the way I looked at her. And I think that looking at her, I think the men looked at it the same way. Because it was different. Betty Grable was, I'll use the word, a bore.
Now, did you ever see Betty?
There was an occasion in the South Pacific with the USO troop, and Betty Grable was there. She happened to ask one of the flight nurses if they could iron or her costume for her. I hate to tell you what they told her to do. So I mean, the idea is that we're working our necks off, and she's enjoying her. I'll use that word.
Uh-huh.
Oh well.
Now, were you ever shot at or bombed at all?
Well, no, actually no. But when we went into Okinawa, we went in on red alert. Anything could have happened.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a bomb or a plane could have come over and hit the airfield.
Mm-hmm.
We were down there 2 hours, and I'm sure it was only 2 hours, enough to load up our patients, refuel, and get the hell out of there.
Mm-hmm.
So that is all. When they went into the Philippines, we were on our honeymoon. When they hit the Philippines, they gave it, you know, we had about a week to 10 days on R&R.
Mm-hmm.
And while we were on our honeymoon, that's when they hit the Philippines, and they evacuated all of the internees. And they said these girls were coming out almost like skeletons.
Mm.
I mean, for 3 years they were interned. And some of the stories that came out, like one of the stories that came out of the Philippines, there was a Japanese soldier who had appendicitis and had to get his appendix out. So they made sure that the American doctors took care of that. And the nurses were all, and they were standing over there with guns. Well, fortunately, he recovered too. And so because of that, they got an extra ration of rice or something. So, I mean, there are all kinds of stories that came out. One of these days, I will get that book. There is a book about these nurses that got caught in the Philippines. Now, as far as MacArthur's concerned, we did not like him, period. Mm-hmm. He was a very selfish man. Instead of trying to get some of the other Americans out, he loaded up his plane with his household goods.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. I mean, he was a very selfish person as a whole. the people who were down in the Philippines and who got captured, or even after we went in, they did not like him, period.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, you read in the history books and you think, well, that didn't happen like that. That didn't happen like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, history actually distorts reality. I suppose that's the way it is.
Yeah.
The flights to the States. And yet, well, people used to say, well, weren't you afraid of flying that whole distance, nothing in between? We said no. It would never occur to us.
Did you ever lose any aircraft like that flying over?
There was a plane with General Harmon going from Hickam Field to Saipan, and the plane went down. What happened? No one will ever know.
Mm-hmm.
They never found him. And yet, we flew the entire Pacific. Yes, many times we came in on only 3 engines. And hope to God we didn't feather another one.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as we're coming into San Francisco, in the middle of winter, the fog hangs over there like pea soup. You can't see in front of you. You know, we had no radar then.
Mm-hmm.
You never know where you're going to land. There are 4 airfields that we could. Well, one plane came in, and it was all fogged up. He said, he's going over the mountains. I guess they tried to reach Reno, but they had to land in a fighter training strip because they were running out of fuel.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we came in. Again, we're practically closed in. He said, I'm going to try Oakland. And so help me God, he found a hole in the clouds and came down in Oakland. And we never know. I mean, they could start out, they're losing fuel, and they could hit a mountain.
Mm-hmm.
Because all along the coast are mountains. And yet, I guess our faith in our pilots was such that we didn't think about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a job to be done, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people would say, and then they would say to me, well, what did you see when you were over there? I said, see? Sky, water, and telephone poles. They said, telephone poles? Yeah, when you bomb an island, what's left? Telephone poles.
Did you ever contract malaria or any kind of tropical...
The what?
Did you ever come down with malaria or any kind of tropical disease?
No. There's no. But somewhere along the line, whether, I don't know what I picked up, but I think that it was at Guam or Saipan. I woke up in the middle of the night shivering. Well, it lasted, grabbed a blanket, wrapped myself up in the blanket,
Mm-hmm.
and waited until it was over. It didn't last long, and there were several other incidences. And someone said to me, you might have had a touch of malaria. Mm-hmm. And because you got out of the area, apparently my immune system might have taken over.
Mm-hmm.
When we were on Tarawa, I know I knocked the Navy too. Tarawa was Navy, and it was a naval installation. But the Navy had no idea how to set up a ground facility.
Mm-hmm.
2 of our girls came down with dysentery, and they were isolated for about 6 weeks. Like I said, the facility wasn't the cleanest,
Mm-hmm.
and that was Navy. Where on Tarawa, everything was spotless because it was Army. Because it was Army. It was either Army or Marine, I don't know. But what the Navy had absolutely no idea of how to set up a land facility. Maybe it's different today, but it wasn't then.
What about your living quarters over there? Were you in like Quonset huts or tents?
Sometime it might have been a Quonset hut, but sometime it was just a wooden, I'll use a wooden shack.
Mm-hmm.
Just, I'll use to keep your rain off.
Uh-huh.
That was just about it. I mean, when you were down in Tarawa, there was like I said, a small wooden building, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And the water, of course, was brackish. And if we want to go out to bathe in the ocean, we want to make sure that the squids aren't going to be there. There was a little ledge, like maybe about this deep, you know, and very often, you know, they would be hiding under there, and then it would go.
Scare you?
Well, not too bad, but you had to be careful. Since there are no, there was on Tarawa, not Tarawa, Canton Island, there are 2 coconut trees and some desert bushes, and that's it. Well, a number of our girls are fair skinned, or even a little bit darker. I mean, fortunately, my skin is not fair. But if they went from our quarters, which was even just about from here to the chair, they would be burned. And a lot of the girls came down from bad sunburns.
Mm-hmm.
Me, I just turned so dark. My daughter has a picture somewhere that I looked like one of the natives. And yet, when I got back, all I did was this. And, I mean, I didn't burn, fortunately.
Uh-huh.
I just flaked off a little bit, that's it.
Uh-huh. Now what about your mess facilities? What kind of food did you have over there?
Oh, Vienna sausages, pancakes, and anything that was canned,
Uh-huh.
powdered eggs.
Did you have a regular mess hall where you
Oh,
ate?
we had a mess hall, okay. And sometime, you know, we'd go to the mess hall, and sometime we'd say, corn. And of course, we were told by the commanding officer to be quiet.
Now, did you get many packages from home?
Not really. Not really.
Mm-hmm.
When we went to the States, we would probably go out there and pick up all the things that we didn't have before. There was a lot of things that we enjoyed, and I remember once, I think they were strawberries or something. Well, whatever it is, like I said, we would come back and we would share it,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and then we would like for some reason or other, we couldn't get very much chicken. So if they had chicken over there in the States, we'd bring all that back,
Mm-hmm.
and the makings for dinner or whatever, and In Hawaii, though, you had plenty of meat. In the big island, it is the Parker Ranch. Now, I think it was the son of the Parker Ranch was an actor. Anyway, the whole family has dwindled down. I don't think there is anyone left of the Parker Ranch. The park, so it was deeded to the town of Hilo for the use of the town. It's a big cattle ranch. In fact, the services always use their facilities, you know, they use their meat and all that. And from what I was told, that when they butcher the cows and stuff, they take all of the whatever and toss it to the sharks.
Oh.
So they don't have a mess. And you know, I think they do the same thing in down in the islands. I understand that they someplace they said they feed the sharks and people who want to go swimming in that area because the sharks leave them alone. So anyway, like I said, it's a big Parker Ranch. So anyway, when we went to the States, we buy chicken and we buy whatever else we want. I know down in the South Pacific you can't get all that stuff. So like I said, which one gets that stuff when we're on the States run? I mean, as we're going out to the Quadrillan run, you can't get any of that stuff anymore either.
Now, what about fresh fruits? Was there any shortage of
Well,
those?
in Hawaii, yes, we get it.
Uh-huh.
But wherever else we are, we don't get it. I mean, like if we're on Kwajalein, there's nothing there but the coconut.
Uh-huh.
Guam and Saipan is so, I'll use the word level, that there is nothing. So whatever's brought in is being brought in by ship. So like I said, everything else was canned. Canned fruits, canned vegetables, powdered eggs, everything like that. And I think oleo got started there too. We had heard something about this substitute for butter, and we didn't know what it was, but whatever it was, it was used. I mean, today I know it was probably a form of oleo.
Yeah.
So, you know, and when you get into the States sometime, you know, we'd, well, when you get home, you want all the things that you didn't have before. You want to go out and you want to go out for dinner and you want to get a good steak, or you want something fancy that you hadn't had in years, you know. And so in a way you begin to enjoy yourself.
Okay. Did you get to see movies at all at night?
Oh, yes. In fact, when we were in Hickam Field, my husband used to go over to the and he'd bring back the camera and on the reels. And one time, and we were all sitting, you know, when the war broke out and all the families were evacuated to the States, the houses were empty. So they put the flight nurses in the staff quarters. Well, I'm leaning back against this couch like, and then there's a cord right up over my head like this. Well, in Hawaii, well, wherever we were, they moved us out of the big quarters into the bachelor's quarters. Anyway, he would take the film, bring it over, and we'd have our own showing on the different shows. Well, anyway, in between reels, I was reading this book. And they're laughing. It's what the hell are you talking about? They wouldn't tell me. Finally, after the reel is finished and everything was put away, that's when they told me there was this bug that was going up the wire and down the wire, close to, and they knew that they had better not tell me because I would have been hysterical. You know, we didn't have insecticides, the kind that we have now. All we had was DDT. And one time, we were in the, I think we were major's quarters, and I had a roommate, and I turned the light on. We turned the light on to go to bed, and as I turned the light on, I screamed. There is a big spider with legs this thick near the light. Well, we managed to swat it around, and it went somewhere. It disappeared somewhere. Well, the next day I called down to the, wherever it was. I said, you better send up a bomb. So we moved the beds to the middle of the room. We didn't want to be anywhere near this spider. If I saw when they moved this into bachelor's quarters, and one time one of these huge things went across the floor, and I went berserk. I guess I learned. I mean, I don't like them.
Yeah. All right. Any other stories or incidents? Yeah.
I'm just trying to think. You know, when you go from Hawaii to the end of the island, to one side of the island, it's called Kolikoli Pass. Now, we were there about 5 years ago, and I said I would like to go over the Kolikoli Pass. They looked at me like I was crazy. They never heard of the Kolikoli Pass. There's a reason for that, too, I guess. If you go to Wheeler Field is the beginning of this Kolikoli Pass. You're timed. The minute you leave and you start that road down the Kolikoli Pass, you're timed from the time you left to the time you get to the bottom. Well, as you near the bottom, you can understand why. In the side of the mountain are ammunition dumps. You could see the doors. But when I got there 5 years ago, they didn't even hear. I don't think nobody even heard of a Kolikoli Pass. There is also in Hawaii what we used to call the Pali. And you go up to the, well, you don't go to the top. And you start down, I guess you get to the top, and you start down the Pali Road. The Pali Road is like this. All the way down. All the way down. And there are 2,000 feet drops on the side of that Pali Road. You get down to the bottom, there is a 20-foot drop on a hairpin turn. And these big trucks would go up that Pali Road and down with only their half light. I saw them during the day, and can you imagine during at night? So we want to go over the Pali Road. It's closed. You can't go anymore. Even as a scenic road, they won't let you go over it. It's probably that treacherous. You know, there's a lot of tourists that would like to see it,
Sure.
but probably they don't even know about it. But you're swimming, and you know, when you're swimming off, there's a number of different places where you could swim. But there's a lot of places that you can't. Now, they have the, not the ski board, but the water shows over there. The,
Mm-hmm.
You know, oh, you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
They have, some of them are maybe 40 feet high. And on that side of the island, they train all these people over there, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, we look. That's about it. We look. But it's at certain times that like we were married in February, and it's a pleasant time because it's in between. Yes, in Hawaii it might rain for 5 minutes and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the time, yes, it could be a little humid. But you know, we went back there this time, and to me, it was extremely humid.
Mm-hmm.
And when we were there before, it was just pleasant.
Uh-huh.
I guess as you get older, then you can't tolerate as much as you get when you're there. You know, I stopped to think also, when we were down in Guadalcanal, and it's extremely humid there. And yet, yes, we felt the humidity, but I guess because you're young, it doesn't bother you as much as when you get older.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I stopped to think about, I mean, you go out there and you're sweating constantly, but it just doesn't seem to bother you as much. But I go down to Florida now, and if it's the warm part of Florida, it's too humid and it's too hot.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, anything else, or?
No. You want to show you something too?
Sure.
I mean, this has nothing to do with me, I don't suppose. You come and take a look at this book. Oh God, the pages are falling apart. And here, come over here. Come over here.
All right, I'll have to turn the camera off.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your interview.
Okay.
Camera to cycle through. Okay, that picture was taken when?
Let me see. 19. Might have been 1944. Early
Okay.
44.
Okay, got it.
Okay, this one was May. Oh, maybe it did. No. This was May 1945.
And that's when you were receiving the Air Medal?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I got it.
Right, let me see whether I can find those. It was all mimeographed, and they.
Okay. Well, you said when you do find them, just mail to us and we'll copy them and send them back to you.
That I've hacked up so much, and I just. I know I didn't put them in here.
No, I don't think I saw them in the album.
No.
All right.
They're about that thick.
Okay.
A mimeograph. You know, we had no Xeroxes then. Everything was mimeographed.
All right. Well, thank you again for the interview.
Well, wait till he comes down because he has all that stuff for you.
Okay.
Oh, God. Unless... No,
Okay, that's your award of the Air Medal.
Right.
Well, I can't really get the text, but is your name on that one?
Hmm?
Your name is on that one. I think the name's on the other side though. Not on that page, but
Well, it's either one. It didn't make any difference, I don't think.
let's see. No, I just wanted to zoom in where they had your name checked off.
Both of them.
Both of them? There it is. You checked it right here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just hold that up and I'll zoom in on it. And that's the air medal. Boy, I don't know if this camera is going to yeah, unfortunately it gets too blurry.
Yes, I know that.
Okay, but that is the air medal you received in 1945.
Oh, look, since there are two of them.
Do you wanna read that? What it says?
Oh, wait. Yeah, okay.
That'll work.
Award of the Air Medal by direction of the President under the provisions of the Executive Order number 9158, 11 May 1942, bulletin number 3525, WD 1942, as demanded by the Executive Order number 9242-A, 11 September 1942, bulletin number 409, WD, and pursuant to the authority contained in the paragraph 17, AR 600-45, 22 September 1943, and paragraph 3A1, circular number 32, USA POA 17 of September 1944. The Air Medal is awarded by the Commanding General, Army Air Force, Pacific Ocean Area to the following named officers. Army Nurse Corps for meritorious achievement in flight during the period of August 1st, 1944 to 15th of March 1945 as flight nurse aboard medical air evacuation transport planes. Each participated in the numerous long over-water flight, returning battle casualties to hospitals in the rear area. Their devotion to duty and untiring effort reflect great credit upon themselves and the Army Nurse Corps. There was First Lieutenant Beth J. Byron, N 732771. First Lieutenant Agnes E. Flaherty, 721278. First Lieutenant Sophie M. Poulis, N 731528. First Lieutenant Florence E. Rockwell, N 788299. First Lieutenant Catherine M. Skradsky, N731531. First Lieutenant Laverne Ditmore, N725701. First Lieutenant Eleanor M. Hoppick, N771439. First Lieutenant William N. Siebert, N737128. First Lieutenant Joan Williams 737464. First Lieutenant Rose Landsman 7723861. Would you
Okay.
believe I left mine out?
Okay. All right.
This one you can take with you because, like I said, there were others.
All right.
God in heaven's name.
Okay. Thank you for your interview.
Okay, where's
Well, thank you.